March 6th, Democrats continue to get hammered for their embarrassing performance at the joint session. Trump offers a final warning to Hamas. Conservative Caucus President Jim Pfaff joins me on the podcast. I'm Alec Lace. This is the Alec Lace Show.
The American family is under attack. Parents are the underdog of this nation. Your children are being indoctrinated. That's right. Your children. They do not belong to the state. They do not belong to the school system. They belong to you, the parents, as a blessing from God our Father. So let's preserve, protect, and fight for the American family together. You're listening to the Alec Lace Show. The future is family.
All right, what's doing, everybody? Welcome to the Alec Lace Show. I'm happy and honored, as always, to be here with you guys. Thank you for tuning in. If you're watching the broadcast as it streams live on Rumble, please get down there, hit the like button. Don't forget to follow the channel here on Rumble and grab that share. Put it on your social media pages. Let's get as many people into the live broadcast here as possible. If you are in here live, get involved in that live chat down there. I got a great program for you guys today. I have the president of the Conservative Caucus, Jim Pfaff, joining me on the podcast today. So we got a lot to get to with him. Tuesday on the podcast, I had George Papadopoulos on the show. A great interview. A lot of good feedback from that. And also, just last night, I was featured on his podcast, Global View. George Papadopoulos and his wife, Simona, host the show. I was honored to be on there with them. It's available now if you guys want to check it out. I'll put the link to that interview in the description down there of today's podcast so you guys can check it out. Honored to get a chance to sit down and chat with them a little bit. I do have one guest in the pipeline locked in. I think you guys are really going to enjoy this for next week. I will drop that at the end of today's podcast. Got to give you a little hook there to try to keep you around, all right? All right, so a few things to get to here. Obviously, the fallout continues from the Democrats' embarrassing performance the other night at the joint session speech, which was a banger by all accounts, not just by the conservative accounts, by Fox News and such, but even the ratings on CNN, the support for President Trump, all in the positive on CNN and CBS. So there's no way that they could say that this wasn't a universal success for President Donald Trump. He hit on the issues that were important to everybody. This is a guy that's done this multiple times. He looked seasoned. He looked good. He looked strong. And the Democrats looked weak. They looked pitiful. They looked childish. They were sitting there holding up these signs, looking absolutely ridiculous, like little spoiled brats. And, you know, they're holding up these stupid signs. They're catcalling throughout the whole thing. And President Donald Trump handled it like a pro. I mean, he allowed them to go. Donald Trump knows he has the American people's mandate. He knows that. And they try to make fun of him on that. Where's the mandate? You don't have a mandate. Even Stephen A. Smith, the sports broadcaster, went on with the View, or he went on one of those left-wing shows, and they tried to tell him, like, oh, there was no mandate. And he breaks it down and going, listen, you can say that all you want, but Trump won. If you look at the amount of counties that Trump won, the swing states, he swept them all. The popular vote, the Electoral College, it was a clean sweep and the biggest mandate we've seen for a president in a very, very long time. So anyway, they try to downplay that, but the Democrats, you had that Congressman Al Green, who had to get thrown out of the session just because he stood up waving his cane. He does this. It was a political stunt. There's no question about that. Now he's going to be censured. They're going to go through with that. He'll get a little pee-pee slap. You know, they'll give him a little stern warning. Nobody will care, and he'll be considered a hero by the left for standing up and standing up for absolutely nothing. The Democrats try to make it act. They act as if they have the majority of the American people behind them, and this is what the whole country wants. The country just voted to have Donald Trump be the leader of the country. That's who the people wanted. It's not like this was a mistake. The people wanted this, and they try to act as if, no, the people really didn't want Trump. They wanted us. So they behave like little spoiled brats. And it's interesting, too, because Trump smacks Elizabeth Warren with the Pocahontas. It was great. He says it right to her, and it caught a chuckle. And, of course, today, he first racial slur during a joint session. How could it be considered a racial slur? Elizabeth Warren's not even a Native American. That's the whole point of it. That's why he calls her Pocahontas. So the people are upset with Trump for calling her Pocahontas, but they're not upset at Elizabeth Warren for using a fake racial nationality like Native American to advance her own career, right? This woman, in a jokingly manner, had to get this test to find out, and she's like 0.0%. Basically everybody walking around is whoever played cowboys and Indians as a kid has more Native American DNA than Elizabeth Warren. It's an insult what she did to the Native Americans, not what Trump is doing. Trump is pointing out the fact that she is an insult to the Native American community. That's what he's doing by calling her Pocahontas. But the Democrats always never get a chance to miss being hypocritical. And they started out the day, Tuesday, with that stupid thing. You had all 22 senators reading from the same script, putting this stuff on social media as if it was all they just all thought of it by themselves, right? They all copy and pasted each other's thing. It was brutal to watch. It looked so terrible, cringeworthy. I made a joke on social media saying maybe Claudine Gay, the plagiarism expert, wrote this dialogue for them to put up there. And then you had that Crockett girl, the girl who's trying to always make a name for herself. She put out some kind of like hip hop video or why she's not attending or whatever it is. It's like they look in complete disarray. They look disorganized. They don't stand for anything. And they're very weak. Of course, they're wearing the pink, supposedly standing up for women. We're protecting women's rights. But yet they couldn't stand up and applaud or honor when you had Laken Riley's family there. They wanted nothing to do with that. They actually mocked and laughed at the girl that got bashed in the face by the volleyball that was hit by that dude that this girl was forced to play against. So anyway, and the girl on MSNBC was the top of the cake because this girl goes and says about this kid, DJ Daniels, which was let's not kid ourselves. This kid stole the show. He was this little boy, 13 years old, was diagnosed with brain cancer years ago, given only 5 months to live. He always wanted to be a cop. Donald Trump honored him Tuesday night and then shocked him completely by announcing that he was now going to be a member of the Secret Service. The Secret Service Director, Sean Curran, came down, gave him his badge, gave him his credentials. And the kid was, you could see the look on his face. He gives the director, a hug, Sean Curran a hug. And Trump had him in the Oval Office today. But that's one of those things where the Democrats couldn't even stand and applaud for that. It's like, that's how sick these people are. So they embarrassed themselves as much as anybody could. And I think that they're in for a long haul with trying to figure out their identity of what they all stand for. So I broke down some of that stuff on my Trump is Trending. If you guys are following that Trump is Trending that I do, go check it out. I broke down some of that on Tuesday night. Also, I give you the top 5 reasons Trump is trending each and every day. So if you want that breakdown, go check that out. One thing I wanted to bring up was Donald Trump yesterday, and I was glad to see him do this to the mayor of Washington, D.C., because I thought it was a disgrace when I went down there for the inauguration, and I walked from a train station over to the arena where he was going to be inaugurated, and on the way there, you pass these homeless encampments, and it's like, man, this is the capital of our country. This is the capital of America, and you have all these people coming into town for the inauguration. They're coming from all over the country, some from the world, to see this historical event before it was, they were already made plans to get there before it was pushed inside because of the cold. So they say, and you have to walk by all these homeless encampments. It's like we're the wealthiest nation on the planet, right? The strongest nation in the world, superpower, and we got all these homeless encampments in our capital. It's a disgrace. Meanwhile, we're sending billions and billions of dollars all over the world to all these other countries. What? So Donald Trump addressed this. He put this post up yesterday. We have notified the mayor of Washington, D.C. that she must clean up all the unsightly homeless encampments in the city, specifically including the ones outside of the State Department and near the White House. If she is not capable of doing so, we will be forced to do it for her. Washington, D.C. must become clean and safe. We want to be proud of our great capital again. Thank you, Mayor Bowser, for your efforts on behalf of the citizens of our country. Hopefully, you will be successful. Is this really too much to ask that we don't have homeless people scattered all about our nation's capital? I just, like I said, I remember when I put up my video when I went live during the inauguration, I was showing you guys these pictures. It's like, this is the disgrace. So hopefully we get that cleaned up. And we might as well, and let's bring that right into this, because you had this sanctuary city hearing that went down yesterday. And I thought Congressman Brandon Gill was perfect at this. Now, let me break it down for you here. You had a bunch of these sanctuary city mayors that were there. You had Mayor Eric Adams was there. You had Mayor Brandon Johnson of Chicago, Mayor Johnston of Denver, and you had the Boston mayor there, Wu, whatever her name is. And so these people are sticking up for the illegal aliens over the American citizens, and they're not afraid of it. Some of them try to hide it. Some of them come out right and say it. Brandon Gill, Congressman Gill, who we had just had on the podcast, a couple of weeks ago here, guy's a very good young congressman, and he gets this Brandon Johnson, whose ratings I think are like 6%. They're in the toilet. He gets this guy to admit that, yeah, he is for all the illegal immigrants getting all these benefits. Take a listen.
First of all, do you support allowing illegal aliens to obtain driver's licenses? Just yes or no.
So the city of Chicago has been a welcoming city for over 40 years.
I'll take that as a yes. Next question.
And that's the policy that we will hold to.
Do you support tax dollars subsidizing or paying for the health care of illegal aliens?
I support investments in all residents of the people of Chicago, and that's what I do.
That's a yes as well. Do you support free or reduced college for illegal aliens?
Again, I support the investments of all residents of the people of Chicago.
Take that as a yes. Next question. Do you support allowing non-citizens to vote in local elections?
Again, I'm not over the jurisdiction of that type of law, but again, I'm committed to investing in all residents of the people of Chicago.
I'll take that as a yes. I've got an article from the Chicago Sun-Times, and I'll quote here briefly. Johnson proposed, among other things, that all residents, regardless of citizenship status, be able to vote for Chicago Board of Education members. Next question. Your website states, and this is your campaign website, quote, "I will not stop fighting until abortion access is completely secure for people all over the country," end quote. Yes or no, do you support taxpayer-funded abortions for illegal aliens?
I support the reproductive rights of all people, all women.
That is a yes as well.
And this is another one of these reasons why Donald Trump won, and Donald Trump has vowed to get rid of and eliminate these sanctuary cities. It's an absolute insult to the American worker, the American taxpayer that we are watching. Brandon Gill points it all out there. We have taxpayer-funded abortion. You have access to health care. You have the ability to get a driver's license. These things are insane that we're allowing illegal immigrants to use our taxpayer money to fund all of this stuff. We know that they're funding their housing and all this other stuff. Now it's down to the state. So like in New York, because Trump cuts the funding to these sanctuary cities, but they're still going to be charging the New York City taxpayer. So how long is it before those people are going to wake up and say, hey, we don't want this? Are these elections being fixed in these sanctuary cities? Because I can't believe for the life of me why anybody that's a true resident of these cities would want to continue to vote for their own demise by voting in these people that want all this nonsense. And so they got hammered yesterday on it. And rightfully so. It's ridiculous that we still have a sanctuary cities in America. And you have these left-wing lunatics, because it's the talking point of the press, that are going along, oh, yes, we should be a sanctuary city. We should welcome all these illegal immigrants. And meanwhile, the taxpayer that's getting basically bent over here because of this entire thing, he has to be looking there saying, what are these people doing? All right, so hopefully, by the end of Trump's term, we'll be done with all these sanctuary cities too, and we can throw these corrupt mayors out of office. And one more thing, like I said, I'm going to have the Conservative Caucus president, Jim Pfaff, on in just a second here. One more thing I wanted to hit on here, because I'm going to talk about it with him. The Supreme Court yesterday ruled 5-4 in favor of this activist judge, and will now be forcing President Donald Trump to discharge $2 billion of foreign aid to USAID. Now, Amy Coney Barrett was one of the judges that dissented on this and ruled against President Donald Trump. And if you looked at her at the Tuesday night session, she does not look very pleased with President Donald Trump. She seems to have a problem with him, and we have a problem with her now. Now, this is a disappointment to me and a lot of us that really pulled for Amy Coney Barrett to get this position, and she was confirmed. But man, it was a letdown she has been as a Supreme Court justice. I remember when she got confirmed a few weeks later, I had her husband. I had him on the podcast on First Class Fatherhood. I did a great interview with him. I thought, I did. They had a great family, and I've been just nothing but disappointed with this Amy Coney Barrett, man. But anyway, meanwhile, she's there. Now, not all the justices were there, but enough. And they were there and they listened to President Donald Trump list all of the ridiculousness and the wasteful spending from this USAID money that's getting pissed away, transgenderism on mice, all this craziness, $1 billion here, $1 million there. And they listened to him list all of this nonsense. And then they go ahead yesterday, the day after, and they vote yes to give more of the money away. So what a disappointment that was. It's going to come down to Congress now to figure out how to make sure we can allocate this money. I'm going to talk to Jim Pfaff about this in a second. One more thing to hit on here. The Caroline Leavitt had a press briefing, and it was just like I started out here by saying the Democrats are continuing to eat crow over their pathetic performance on Tuesday night. She really hammered it to them. And then I'm going to show you that clip, and then one other clip which I thought was great, where Karine Jean-Pierre, the former press secretary, took a shot at the Trump administration. I thought Caroline Leavitt handled it beautifully. Take a listen.
The behavior of Democrats last night was completely disgraceful and demonstrated how severely out of touch they are with the American public. It was the most shameful moment in the history of presidential addresses in that beautiful chamber. Democrats didn't stand to keep men out of women's sports. They couldn't even clap for a girl who got her head smashed in by a man on a volleyball court. Democrats didn't stand for an innocent and beautiful child who is surviving brain cancer. They opposed eliminating taxes on tips and Social Security. They didn't stand in favor of cutting taxes for hardworking Americans. They couldn't even clap for two mothers whose daughters were killed by illegal aliens. Last night, MSNBC's Nicole Wallace disgustingly looped in a 13-year-old boy with brain cancer into an attack on the president over January 6th.
As your predecessor, Karine Jean-Pierre, who presided over many novel press access restrictions, criticized the recent changes to the press pool made by your office. She said in an interview, quote, "What we're looking at is what North Korea is doing." What's your response to that?
I think that's the same individual who said from this podium numerous times that the commander-in-chief was mentally and physically up for the job, which we knew was a lie. Many people in this room knew it was a lie. Many of you were admonished for asking questions about that truth. So when it comes to truth and transparency, this administration, this White House is setting the example. This president is taking far more questions than his predecessor, Joe Biden, did on a daily basis.
Yeah, and the second part of that, where they're comparing, Karine Jean-Pierre compares them to North Korea, it's because why in the world should Trump entertain these mainstream media news outlets that are only there to undermine him? And we know they're only there to undermine him. They have no other. We saw during the campaign, every story, like 90% of the stories about Trump were negative, and it was like 90% of the stories about Kamala Harris were positive. These are not legitimate news sources. So why do we continue to treat them that way? And so Trump has to just, he did this with the Associated Press, throwing them out of the room. It's like this. Then they try to say, oh, look what he's doing to the press. You guys are not the press. You're opposition. You guys are against President Donald Trump. It's not like you can read their news articles and be like, oh, this is clearly unbiased here. There's a bias. They hate the president. And so why should he reward them with having them around asking questions? They did everything to carry Joe Biden for 4 years. And now they're going to do everything to hammer President Donald Trump. Why should he stand for it? When you have legit podcasters who they used to make fun. I remember when I was there at the White House, they made fun of me as though, oh, you see the podcaster? Oh, who's the podcaster? And they would make fun of me. Now, you know what? The podcasters have made a huge impact on Trump winning this election. So it's not something to be laughed and mocked at anymore. The mainstream media, their days are numbered. But they still feel like they still act like they're journalists in journalism. They're not. They're activists. And Trump knows this. And this is why they opened the press up to regular independent journalists, podcasters, influencers. Give them an opportunity to relay the message to the people. Give them an opportunity to ask questions. All these other people are doing in there. They're seedy. You could see it's just we've all seen it. They've been exposed as the fake news media, which is what they are, and so they didn't like to hear it. And I thought Caroline Leavitt handled that beautifully. Right? Karine Jean-Pierre stood up there and defended Joe Biden when we could all, with our own eyes, watch the man in mental decline. And she's up there telling us, "Don't listen to your eyes. Listen to what I'm telling you." And then wants to be taken as a serious source of information. And it doesn't work that way. And that's the same thing with these media outlets, these CNNs, MSNBCs. They blatantly lie to you time and time again and then expect you to believe them as a serious source of news. We reject it. And mainstream media is on its way out. All right. Jim Pfaff is the president of the Conservative Caucus. These guys they are a hardworking group. I love what they're all about, and I'm honored to get Jim Pfaff on the podcast with me today, so let's bring him on.
You're listening to the Alec Lace Show. The future is family.
All right, joining me now, Jim Pfaff. Welcome to the Alec Lace Show.
Glad to be here. Thanks for having me.
Well, it's a pleasure to have you here. Let me get your thoughts, first of all, on Trump's address that he had, his joint session address. Any kind of different takeaway. I know it's been much discussed. What was your kind of takeaway from the whole thing?
Well, what's interesting is my takeaway about Democrats, in part, because, and before I get to Trump, which is, what they believe is three things. This is their agenda. Allowing men to go into girls' restrooms and locker rooms, standing up for federal bureaucrats and saving their jobs, and working hard to keep criminal illegals in this country. Okay. Contrast that with Donald Trump, who is laying out this amazingly wonderful, positive message for the future of this country. And in fact, in times past, a Republican president doing this in this environment, Democrats would have typically been saying, "Oh, that's awfully good. I don't know what we're going to do about that." These Democrats are screaming and yelling and pushing for everything that the American people rejected last time around. But Donald Trump's he's really got this down. I think this second iteration of his presidency is frankly going to be very fun and interesting and very focused as well.
Yeah, good points. And I think he said it was like his fifth time addressing Congress. So it's not like it's his first go around. He's got a lot of experience now under his belt. But yeah, I think the Democrats really stood out. Very childish. I think the whole thing with the holding up the bingo cards and, and rightfully so, they threw out that Al Green. I think he disgraced himself. And we remember, too, they were trying to compare it to how Marjorie Taylor Greene and Lauren Boebert, the congresswomen, were speaking out during Joe Biden's. But when they were reprimanded, they sat down and they stopped. I think that was the difference going forward. What was your take on Al Green? Obviously, he did this as a publicity stunt or an activist stunt. But what was your read on that?
Listen, it's politics, so there are things like that. I often say that I love prime minister questions in Great Britain because it gets a little raucous and rowdy there, but still there's decorum with it as well. So they may push back and interrupt a little bit and that sort of thing. That sort of thing doesn't bother me. But what Al Green did goes way over the top because he says he wants to impeach Donald Trump constantly, but what is the criteria? He doesn't like his personality, and he's wanting to cut money out of the federal government. Totally not impeachable offenses. So that's where you go way over the top. Lauren Boebert and Marjorie Taylor Greene did have some substance behind what they did. I felt they went just slightly over it. And by the way, Lauren Boebert is a friend of mine, and I have great respect for her, and she's awesome. But that can get a little bit over the top of it, but you can see the emotion and you say they pulled back. Al Green doesn't do that. And then the rest of what Democrats did, not being totally screaming and yelling out there and not stopping it. That's, the American people are really pissed off. I mean, evidenced by the fact that 73, I think, % of people by CBS News that watched it loved what they saw. Pretty amazing to me, and they're missing the boat.
Yeah, even CNN had a positive read from their viewers saying that they thought his message was on point. They liked what he said. And just going back to that, too, the argument was that they didn't throw those two girls out, the two congresswomen, out of the session. But during one of Biden's State of the Union, they did have one of the Gold Star fathers arrested who did speak out. They threw him out of the chamber and also arrested that guy. Later, they dropped the charges, but they put that guy under arrest, and he was just trying to get some answers for his son who was killed in the Abbey catastrophe. So, it's not to say that they hold the moral high ground in that sense either. But I do believe that it gave the regular watcher, the regular voter, the regular citizen an opportunity to see the Democrats and just how silly it was. And to your point, I was saying to my wife the other night when we were watching it, it kind of reminded me of the Canadian Parliament, the way that they, I know you're saying to do it in Britain or UK, but it's like, I was saying it was getting loud and out of hand like that. But it's just, this is who they are. And for the fact that they didn't stand up for that 13-year-old kid, DJ, that's fighting brain cancer, I thought, what an amazing moment. To have him, become a Secret Service agent there right on the spot. You could just see his face, how shocked he was by it. And then we had the moment of him embracing now Sean Curran, the Secret Service head.
It's breathtaking, frankly, the people that Democrats would not stand for. And what's profoundly interesting about the moment in history that we have ourselves in is that you have this somewhat bombastic politician, Donald Trump, or at least can be from time to time, coming in and having far more to him than anyone imagined. I mean, this is part of what's tripping up the Democrats is Donald Trump's a pretty substantive guy. I mean, even me, like I remember the discussion of him wanting to run for president 20 plus years ago. And he got involved with the Reform Party for a little bit and a couple of those little things. I'm like, no, this isn't right. But then he comes on the scene. He has far more substance than I even imagined he would have. I mean, he's substantive enough to have a big business. Democrats, though, cannot handle the fact that this guy is incisive in his judgment about what he sees going on. He makes clear and purposeful decisions about the next steps to take. He finds ways to get to the end, that a goal that he hopes, which always conforms to constitutional norms, always ends up conforming even to cultural norms if you really think about it. But he does it in a way that seems that that's never going to happen because he knows that you've got to push really hard on the front end to get what you need to get. He's become really good at this, and it's been good for the country too. And just look at Zelensky this week and how he responded. Like he says, we're still watching how this is playing out, but he says he's going to come back and play. That's very interesting. It takes someone like Donald Trump to do it, in my opinion.
Yeah, I think the whole Ukraine thing has turned into a nightmare for Zelensky. I think obviously he was really hoping that Kamala Harris was going to become the president. This way he could keep his little money laundering operation going there. We've seen him with Democrat governor of Pennsylvania there, signing those missiles, signing those bombs. He couldn't have been happier to be doing that. These are people that wanted more war. So I think that that's a big problem for him that Trump got into power. And now he's saying, hey, we need to find a way for peace. And that is not what that guy wants. So I know he's kind of flip-flopping back and forth. But let me get you on this because these activist judges that have been standing up in the way of President Trump's agenda. One of them was stopping his $2 billion money going to USAID, and then this went to the Supreme Court. And now yesterday, the Supreme Court, in a 5-4 decision, sides with the activist judge and stops President Trump from saving taxpayers this $2 billion going to USAID.
You know, I want to read real quickly Judge Alito's response to that because I think it encapsulates what's taking place. He says, does a single district court judge who likely lacks jurisdiction have the unchecked power to compel the government of the United States to pay out and probably lose forever $2 billion taxpayer dollars? The answer to that question should be an emphatic no, but a majority of this court apparently thinks otherwise. I'm stunned. I mean, think about this for a second. That $2 billion may have been appropriated by Congress, but where it was going to go out to was determined by Joe Biden just on the whim that he decided and what priorities he wanted to do it with. Donald Trump comes and wants to pull that back, and suddenly there are a few people in the Supreme Court, including Amy Coney Barrett and John Roberts, who thinks that needs to stop. I mean, Gorsuch and Kavanaugh and Thomas and Alito got this. They understand what's really going on here. There has been a very unique approach to Donald Trump that is entirely different than constitutional norms or even American norms. Like, the guy is very, let me say, not typical in his approach to politics. But what we realize is that we've had a system set up in this country through constant experience, constant appropriations and approaches to all this, that really was corrupt at its focus. But Donald Trump reveals how bad it really is at times just like this. By the way, I think Donald Trump's going to win this battle eventually.
Yeah. Well, I think also too, now it's going to come to Congress to really do something now at this point, is it not?
Yeah, and frankly, that's our weakest link in the whole Trump agenda process. I worked on Capitol Hill for 9 years for 2 different congressmen as their chief of staff. I saw how the sausage is made, and I'm telling you, these people get scared of their shadows. Now, I'm going to give them credit for the fact that John Thune actually did work to get all these nominees through as quickly as possible, with the exception of allowing these senators to run off to Munich for that security conference. That was a waste of time when we could have got Kash Patel. But on this other side of this, you've got Mike Johnson, who's got his speaker's chair right now totally because of the efforts of Donald Trump, not because of anything he did. So he needs to keep that relationship strong, because Donald Trump probably was a little bit dissatisfied. He expressed dissatisfaction, but he went on board. So Donald Trump's got enough influence here, but you've got members of Congress who are bought into this system. We're 36 and almost 39 trillion actually here very soon, trillion dollars in debt, not just because of Democrats. Republicans have been voting the Pelosi priorities forward since COVID. They were doing it before COVID even. And let me give you a quick little number here while I'm talking about this. In 2019, our federal spending, total federal spending, was somewhere around $4.5 trillion. We are now just at $7 trillion. The only reason we popped up so quickly was because of an extra $2 trillion supposedly for COVID relief. Well, COVID's way out of the picture. Why haven't we rescinded any of that? If we adjusted that money for inflation to now, it would be about $5.3 trillion. That 4.5 turns into 5.3. That's with even Biden inflation. And we would still be balancing the budget if we just went to all those spending priorities then. That's the problem that we're in. Washington, D.C. doesn't recognize how bad a situation it is, and they want to continue it forward, and some Republicans are part of that process.
Well, I think, Jim, one of the problems that we do have, and like you said, our weak link here is, the slim majority we have in the House, but we don't have everybody on board. And we never saw that with the Democrats. They're always, like you say, you have Al Green. Hey, I'm bringing articles of impeachment against Trump. For what? Nobody knows. They don't care. That's not the way that they play the ball. They just come no matter what. They did it with him during his first term, impeachment. We had 4 years with Joe Biden, and we couldn't find it in our heart to bring articles of impeachment against this guy who was corrupt to the core. And actually, pardons his whole family on the way out the door. That's how bad it was. So that part of it does suck. And it's like, we're a blink away from the midterms, because it's going to come up very fast. And then who knows what happens there. And right now is the time to strike. And it just seems like it never happens fast enough for us, but we got to start moving on some of these things, man, especially codifying some of these executive orders from Trump.
Well, let me throw another little ditty out at this. When the Senate was considering its budget bill recently, Rand Paul offered an amendment on the floor that would have cut spending by $1.5 trillion, not even getting rid of the deficit problem entirely. And 29 Republican senators voted no. It's breathtaking.
Yeah.
Now, it's not just breathtaking because of the numbers. Here's why it's really breathtaking. This is in a month and a half's worth of time of praise for Doge, and it's only Democrats who've been against it, elected Democrats who are against it. The American public has been 100% behind the Elon Musk Doge effort. We just won a big election where this was a huge issue, one of the huge issues in it, and 29 Republicans couldn't figure out that, hey, let's just go for broke. Let's just do it different this time, and we'll go ahead and cut $1.5 trillion. No, they wouldn't do it. but the politics is all on their side. When they can't get that, that tells you the rot in the system on the Republican side that we are dealing with. So if they would just decide, let's just go for broke with the Trump thing, and let's see what we can get done. Even if I said, let's disagree on Ukraine a little bit, but let's do everything else. I mean, if they just did that, we could be on a wonderful track. And you're all right. A lot of what he's doing in executive orders does need to be codified. If J.D. Vance gets elected and we got another 8 years of him, for example, I don't know who it'll be, and continued the Trump executive order along those lines, that would actually be an incredibly positive boost for our American agenda and getting back to constitutional government. But that's always at risk until we can get Congress to act. And I wonder sometimes if they will, even with all the victorious capabilities they have to solidify their majority forever. Remember, George Bush was going to solidify his Republican majority by creating Medicare Part D, expanding government, no child left behind. That was going to be a permanent Republican majority. We could have a real permanent Republican majority if they wanted it by cutting spending the way that Donald Trump is attempting to do it.
Yeah, well said, Jim. And it just makes me concerned. Number one, we know we have the people in there that are, truly not Trump supporters, but I think that they're playing the game because for their own political career, they know that if they don't show face, if they don't try to play ball with Trump, their career is going to be over. They'll be primaried and they'll be out of Congress. So I think it's kind of still difficult to tell who's who in there because right now they're going to say the right things because their political future is on the line. And they know that if they step out of line, they're going to get primaried and it'll be over. Why not just try to toe the line and play the game a little bit until they pass that buck and then they solidify themselves in Congress. So we had this problem with his first term, not knowing who to trust. And Trump surrounded himself by a bunch of people that were in there to undermine him. And now he goes outside the box with so many of these picks, 20 of 22 in his administration already confirmed. And a lot of people scratching their heads like, why would you pick this guy? He's trying to pick guys, number one, that he trusts because this is what happened. They all cut him off at the knees in the first term. And so right now we have to have faith, but I got to bring it to this because the Epstein file rollout was a huge disappointment. Pam Bondi, the Attorney General, she is going to have trouble getting the American people, especially the Trump supporters, to celebrate any big wins until this thing is settled. So give me your take on Director Patel and Attorney General Bondi and their handling of this.
Well, Kash Patel, I have entire trust in. This was not a Kash Patel thing rolling that out. I do not know why Pam Bondi rolled that stuff out when in the manner she did. It was so obvious that was not the right strategy. Now, I don't know. Maybe the White House also was encouraging get something out there because we got to do it quick. But the thing that needed to be gotten out there was far more than what she did. So she apparently knew on Friday morning that this was a problem, that there were more records to be had. She should have made an announcement that we've got a whistleblower. Just say what it is. Got a whistleblower. We found out there's more documents. We're going to delay the release until we can review it. Now, I have confidence in Kash Patel reviewing this. She said in a recent interview, that's what she's got happening. So Kash Patel puts his team together to look at this. I have some confidence in that. But it's still, they're going to have to knock it out of the freaking park. Yeah. Like the redactions are going to need to be perceived credibly by the public as being for the purpose of protecting young women, for example. Okay, I get that. But it better be no more than that. And they better get it all out there. If they don't, you are going to have a revolt in the base. They want this out. Now, I will tell you this. My strategy would have been, let's get the JFK files out first. Yeah. Let's get the MLK files out first. We're working on the Epstein files. We're definitely going to get them out. But again, whistleblower, we found there was more documents. This could take a little bit of time because we're just getting to it. But you can be rest assured we're going to get it done. If they handled it that way, I think people would have been a little bit more willing to deal with this. But they better knock it out of the park. That's all I got to say.
I'm right there with you, Jim. And they signed that executive order for the JFK, RFK, MLK files a few weeks back, and we thought we were going to get it. And then now we have a task force that's assigned to reviewing it before we see it. So a lot of that stuff. And again, I'm just with you. I have total faith in Kash Patel. I believe he's one of the best the best that we have in there. And even though you saw yesterday or Tuesday how we had they made the arrest, his first arrest, the guy involved with the Abbey thing, it was a good win. But if you look at his post, even on social media, on X, when he posted that big win that he had, a lot of the comments coming from the MAGA side is, yeah, this is great, but where's that Epstein file? So, I mean, this is something that's going to haunt them until it gets out there. And I pray that they get it sooner rather than later. Last word on that.
Yeah, everyone needs to cool their jets on Kash Patel for now, because keep in mind, this Epstein file rollout was started by Pam Bondi before Kash got through his nomination process. He was just getting things rolled up. So I'm very, very positive about him. I wanted Matt Gaetz to be Attorney General. Yeah. I do like Pam Bondi. I do think she's going to do well. I'm hopeful of it at least. But Matt Gaetz or someone else was my pick. So I am kind of keeping my eyes out for that. But Kash, I'm very positive with, and I think everyone else should be as well.
I agree with you there. Pam Bondi, I was not familiar with Attorney General Bondi. Kash Patel, Matt Gaetz are both people I've had on this podcast. I was familiar with them, obviously. And so I'm kind of more in that camp than I am. But again, it's early. We're going to give Pam Bondi the benefit of the doubt here. The last thing I kind of want to transition to with you is I know you do some work with Focus on the Family. My entire base that I've been preaching is about the fatherless crisis, and the family unit has been broken down in this country. And it's something that I've worked very hard to bring a lot of attention to. And I think that right now, I think it's the number one social issue we have in the country is what's happened to our nuclear family. And we just saw 4 years of the Democrats promoting and highlighting this alternative family life with LGBTQ, 2 dads in the home or 2 moms in the home, or one, glorifying the single parenthood, glorifying the state having control of your children. And I think now that we have the ball in our court, we need to just, instead of trying to bring more attention to them and what they've done, I think we on this side now need to highlight the benefits and the beauty of the nuclear family unit, 2 parents, a mom and a dad with their children in the home. And I think if we do that over the next 4 years, it can make a big impact on the future of the country.
No, I totally agree with it. In fact, in my role as president of the Conservative Caucus, as I'm doing right now, we are in our organization going to be taking this on. But I had the privilege of working with Dr. Dobson for quite a few years, and Focus on the Family really, certainly under his tenure, was very good at understanding and focusing on what mattered, not just from kind of the ministry cultural aspect of it, but also the political aspect of it. Where we have come to, that Dr. Dobson was really, I think, crying out about from the 90s all the way through the early 2000s as the marriage debate, the homosexual marriage debate was ramping up. And by the way, I ran the marriage amendment in Colorado that was very successful. We won it with 60% of the vote in a blue trending state at the time on a very red issue. In a blue year, we won. But he was crying out about this problem. And now here we are where you have transgenderism is mutilating young kids. And then you've even got discussions of polyamory, having multiple partner marital families. I mean, we were talking about, hey, it's going to get out of hand. I was like, oh, stop that. That's just a slippery slope argument. Well, here we are on the bottom of the slope. We do need to call these things out. The Democrats went way overboard by trying to normalize transgenderism. As a matter of, I run into this person who thinks they're transgendered, and how do I treat them personally? Listen, be nice to people. You don't have to be a jerk to them. But we have to say in society that the nuclear family, that thing where we are creating long-term family structures with, frankly, a handful of kids in them on average, that is incredibly healthy for society. If you have single parenthood, if you shame families that stay together as husband and wife for long periods of time, which we do in this culture. Yeah. We do shame particularly Christian families, but any family that the husband and wife wants to stay together, we shame this thing. We need to turn that back around, because having a strong father and a strong mother in the home who love one another and raise children is the only way to get a long-term reduction in the worst aspects of society. I've talked about this for years. I used to share this document, and I've got to update it, called The Map of the Family. And Focus on the Family put this together. It showed statistics on every major good or bad thing in culture. And what they found is this. So the research is very clear. If you have a married mother and father in the home, things like drug use or criminality or depression and all these negative factors, as well as positive factors of career advancement, of personal stability and other factors, if you have a married mother and father in the home, you will have a far more than 50% success rate in keeping negative factors from emerging and helping positive factors grow strong. The social science is out. It's without dispute. We just decided as a society to say parenthood is not important, and you can do whatever you want. You can have sex however and whenever you want, in whatever circumstance. Don't ever get married until your 40s. And in fact, you're even seeing people in Gen X right now saying, don't get married at all. I prefer not being married. That's destructive for society. We need families to be growing. So at the Conservative Caucus, I'm just going to continue the work that I was doing with Focus on the Family, because I think this is an important turnaround we need to take advantage of with Trump's election and with what I see in the future politically here going forward in the next 10, 15 years.
Well, I appreciate the work that you do, because I honestly feel like unless we get that problem solved, no matter what we do otherwise politically, it's never going to be sustainable if we don't have that foundation of the family. And the whole thing is just going to collapse. I mean, that's what's happened throughout history. Once the family is destroyed, the nation soon follows. So I really hope that we do highlight this over the next 4 years while we have the ball in our court, and highlight the benefits and the awesomeness of marriage, man and husband and wife and their children. So props to you for that. What else you got going on in the Conservative Caucus? What are you guys working on? Where can my listeners go to check it out?
So theconservativecaucus.org is our website. What we are working on, we're doing some election integrity work. We want to work with the all 50 states to get their voter rolls cleaned, mostly of people who have moved out of the state or moved elsewhere. We're working on some of those efforts. We are going to look at legislative efforts in the states to try to reassert voter ID. We also are spending time actually trying to put focus on what's happening with Doge and why we need to support it. We're spending a lot of time. We're going to be rolling out some campaign style commercials here very soon to start talking about this, because a limited government, you talk about the family being important. That is really important. But when the federal government gets out of our lives, that also is critical to an advancement of culture. Most of what every American does is related to paying taxes and conforming to what Washington, D.C. says that they need to do. We're wanting to break that cycle, and that's part of what we do as an organization. We're going to spend a lot of time helping expand the light that is placed on Doge and its benefits and the good things that are happening, because that message needs to be spread far and wide. And we're building out our grassroots network again in all 50 states. Howard Phillips, our founder, we've been around for 50 years, since 1974. We're the oldest conservative grassroots organization in the country. Howard Phillips, our founder, had about 200 and almost 240 congressional districts organized in all 50 states. After he died, that kind of went away. We're rebuilding that. We're in about 38 states right now, expanding very quickly. So we want to teach people how to get involved in their state and local government as well as the federal government, and get active. So we're doing those are kind of three major prongs of what we're trying to get done.
Awesome stuff. I appreciate what you do. I got the link to the Conservative Caucus down in the description below, so my listeners can tap it and check it out. Jim Pfaff, thank you so much. I'd love to have you on again down the line. Thanks for giving me a few minutes of your time today on the Alec Lace Show.
Always great to do it. Thanks for having me on.
Promo code FATHERHOOD. Go to mypillow.com, and everything we have on sale there. Actually, we brought in the percale sheets. The queen size, $34.98 a set. King size, $39.98 a set. That's unheard of. It's the lowest price in history. And everything else on there that we have, you can save up to 80%. We don't have any middlemen. We don't have box stores and stuff. They canceled on MyPillow. They even canceled my book to get my book out, you know. So use that promo code FATHERHOOD, everybody, and And please help us out, and thanks for the ones that you have already helped. And by the way, you'll be helping yourself to the best sleep in history, period.
I got to tell you, that mattress topper is the best product I have in the house, Mike, no doubt.
And that turns any bed into the best bed in history. If you got an old bed, new bed, doesn't matter. You put the mattress topper on there, and it changes everything. You need a different input to get a different output. People waking up every day going, maybe my bed will be better tonight. No, you need a MyPillow mattress.
All right, honored to have Jim Pfaff on the podcast today. What you guys think about the interview? Hit me with a comment down below. Go check out theconservativecaucus.org. I got the link in the description down below. And you guys hear me harp on this all the time. I constantly say it, and I believe it in my heart. We have a breakdown of our nuclear families, and we have seen it over the last 4 years. The Democrats were in power. All they did was shove all that other bullshit in our face. That's what they did. They didn't care whether you wanted it or not. They shoved it down your throat every single chance they got. Okay, even with, Karine Jean-Pierre, the press secretary, her first day in the office. Oh, I'm the first black, lesbian, LGBTQ. It's like everything was all about that. And you know what? We have the opportunity now, because we're in there, we have the opportunity, like I was saying to Jim, is to promote our side of it now, which is the nuclear family, mother, father, child. And it's time for us to just shove that down their throat and really highlight it for our younger generation. There's no future in LGBTQ, okay? If everybody was gay, the society is over in one generation. Okay? So it's us that are going to keep the population populating, right? So we should be proud to be a part of a nuclear family, which I am. It's the most important thing in my life, okay? I am a father first before everything. And everything with my children starts in this home, okay? So we are people of faith. So my faith really matters to me, and it's something else that I think needs to be pushed out into this younger generation. And while we have the football, we may as well spike the faith football as well. So spike the family football, spike the faith football. And the other thing that's very big with me is, because it's a part of my life, is the blue-collar workers. Because I've been a railroad mechanic my whole life. For 25 years I'm doing this, right? And I've done every other odd job you can imagine. From being the super in my apartment building for years to driving a taxi cab, right? It's like, these are things that matter to me, okay? And I think these are the people, the parents, the blue-collar workers, the people of faith. We're the ones now that need to be loud and proud and show our passion for what we do. And you know what? It just, I'll be honest with you, it leads to a more happy, fulfilled life. And you see it from these people on the left that are telling you about all this other stuff. They never seem too happy. They're always telling you about all this other stuff. Meanwhile, they look miserable. They're angry. They're screaming and yelling at the clouds. You saw it during COVID. You see it every time you speak to a liberal and you try to have some kind of conversation about politics. Forget about it. It's the liberal that's going to go through the wall or start throwing a temper tantrum. We saw it with the Democrats on display at the joint session. I mean, that's who they are. They're angry, miserable bastards. And so, when you create a family, start a life, leave a legacy, the future is family, man. That's where it is. The future is family. We got to get that message across to our young kids. Sorry for harping on that there. Last thing I want to hit on before I get you out of here, the thing I was talking to Jim about with Kash Patel and the win that he did have, which is a big win. They got the guy responsible for the Abbey Gate bombing that killed 13 of our people. And so Kash Patel put this up on Twitter yesterday with the guy in handcuffs. Muhammad Sharaf Falala, alleged co-conspiracy in the murder of American soldiers at Abbey Gate in Afghanistan, apprehended and extradited last night. Wheels down to face American justice. Thank you, Pam Bondi, John Radcliffe, Gabbard, and the brave agency personnel. 3.5 years later, justice for our 13. The crazy part about this, too, is that the New York Times reported that at the time that the Biden administration ordered U.S. troops to withdraw from Bagram on July 1st, 2021, 6 weeks later, on August 15th, Taliban fighters swept into the base and freed thousands of prisoners, including senior Taliban al-Qaeda figures. Almost 2 weeks later, August 26th, ISIS suicide bomber assisted Shulafula, whatever his name is, and detonated the explosive device at Abbey Gate, killing 13. So all of this stuff, we know we've harped about that enough too with Joe Biden, with this debacle from Afghanistan. I know it from all these special forces guys that I'm friends with. It has ripped them apart, that whole thing. I mean, it really lit a fire under them. As you can see, I went down there to the March on Washington for Pete Hegseth with all those Navy SEALs and all those other veterans, and man, they are pissed. I mean, this woke a lot of them people up. So anyway, it's a good win for Kash Patel. It's a good win for the FBI. And and as I was saying to Jim there, I have faith in Kash Patel. The issue is going to be this disastrous Epstein client list for them. It really is going to be a problem if they can't get it straightened out and put it out there. And not just put it out, but like we were saying, in a big way. It's got to be a home run ball right now to bring the faith back. Anyway, that's what I had here today. I'm grateful to Jim Pfaff for giving me a few minutes of his time. I told you I'll give you one of the guests I have lined up for next week. I'm scheduled right now, Tuesday on the podcast. I'm going to have Senator Bernie Moreno join me on the podcast. So make sure you tune it back in for that. Moreno is a first-time senator. He's a freshman senator, so it's going to be a lot of fun to have him on the podcast. So bring it back. I'm working on some other guests, too. Follow me on X at Alec Lace, because when I get the guests, I'll put them up on there first. And that's all I got for you guys here today. I know the news cycle will be busy, so catch me over on X and watch the Trump is Trending. I put that up daily. So I give you the top 5 reasons Trump is trending every day. I got the link down there in the description of today's show. God bless you parents out there. God bless you listeners. God bless our police, our first responders, our military, our veterans. God bless America. And I'll catch you guys on Tuesday next week, right back here on Rumble. Have a great weekend.
You're listening to the Alec Lace Show. The future is family.